welcome back to Wow Mom Cooking. Today we're going to be making a family dinner. Boneless pork chops, baked macaroni and cheese, and buttermilk cornbread. Delicious, you're going to love it. Grab your aprons, your pens, your papers, and let's get cooking with Wow. Our marinade for our pork chops. We have, well, it's actually called spicy or not peach marinade, but there were no peaches at the store, so we've got nectarines. That's okay to do. If you need to sub something in, do it. I just suggest you don't use canned. So we have nectarines, some peppers, onions fresh out of our garden, and let me grab our beautiful pork chops. These are fresh from the butcher. So we're going to get this all together. In a bigger bowl, we're going to put everything we need. We're going to start with some Meyer lemon extra virgin olive oil. We want about a half a cup because we have a lot of pork chops to cover. This is Gianni's Fine Foods. This is one of the finds I had at the gourmet experience. Told you guys a little bit about that. I'll be posting all of their information. Need to wipe out my bowl. So there's a half a cup of that. We're going to put a little bit of the classic balsamic vinegar. This is from the San Felipe Olive Company. Met them at the gourmet experience also. We're going to do about a quarter cup of that. It's a very thick, very traditional balsamic vinegar we have here. We're going to mix that up. And then we are going to add to that some of our garlic flakes. I've talked about these before. They're dried garlic flakes. We're going to put a couple tablespoons of that in there. We're going to do couple pinches of salt, which will end up being about a tablespoon of salt. Might sound like a lot, but remember, this is a marinade. The pork chops are going to sit in here while we do the other things and soak up all these flavors before we cook them. So we'll mix that together. Okay, we're going to mix this all together. We want those dried flakes to start to be able to incorporate all the other flavors in there. Since they're dried, they'll suck everything back up and then they'll kind of re-emulsify. So the next thing we're going to do, get our pepper going. Got one red pepper. These little jalapenos are for us. We're going to make two separate batches because not everybody likes spicy. So once we split it, we'll add these in. This, though, is just a regular sweet bell pepper. We're going to slice it up. Kind of chunky. We just want the flavor, and we're going to cook this all together with them once we cook the pork chops. Okay, we'll put this into our mix, give it a good stir again. It already smells delicious and looks pretty too. Next we're going to do one of our onions. These are picked fresh out of my garden. They're kind of small, but we're going to use the tops too. I'm going to slice these a couple of times, peel off anything that's brown still. Kind of julienne these. The way they grow and the way they end up in your mix kind of ends up like a stringy onion instead of a big round onion. And they have a very sweet, very delicious flavor. So kind of julienne those, and then we're going to mix this in there. Then we are going to take the tops and cut part of this off of there. Again, you can smell that onion flavor. It smells delicious. That should be just about right. It's probably 3/4 of a cup or a real big handful. We'll mix it again. The reason we keep mixing is we want to make sure all these flavors get together really well and they end up tasting really good on our pork chops. It already looks almost good enough to eat. We got to add our fresh ground peppercorns. We want them kind of coarse. Again, this is a marinade. It's not something you're going to eat raw, so we want to make sure that they're there to give all the flavor they can. Okay, then after that, we're going to start on our nectarines. The skin is fine. Don't worry about putting that in there. They're kind of hard to get apart, so if you slice them and turn them and they don't come apart, just start peeling pieces off of them. We're going to dice these up a little bit smaller than our peppers were. We want the juice from these nectarines to get into that marinade and add to the flavor. This side of the peach is a little bit harder. What I normally do is slice it again and do the same thing. I pull it right off the pit. May not always be pretty, but it does work. Okay, get that in our mix. You want to do that with all 4 nectarines. You need to wash your hands in between, that's fine. Don't want your knife to get slippery. And then we'll come back and we'll split it off and add in the peppers. Okay, now that we have all of our nectarines in, I'm going to give this a good stir. Make sure we have enough liquid. If you look at it, you think you need a little bit more olive oil, add a little bit more. We don't want it to be runny. This is more like a chutney that's going to go on these, and they're going to sit there and just soak up all that flavor while we cook everything else. Okay, I have right here 6 boneless pork chops. They're very thick. 2 of them are going to get cut in half because I know there's a couple people having dinner that don't eat that much. So you'll see these are huge. We're going to take this and we're going to slice it right in half. Kind of like butterflying it. Okay. Now we have 2 beautiful pork chops. We're going to do that to 1 more. And the rest we'll leave just like they are. So that means we have 4 thick ones and 4 thin ones. We can feed 8 people, so you can see the difference. This is a regular pork chop. That's a man-sized pork chop. And believe me, there's a couple men that are going to appreciate this tonight. Okay, we're going to grab our other bowl. We're going to take 2 of the small ones and 1 of the big ones. Put those in a separate bowl because those are going to be our not spicy ones. The rest are going to be our spicy ones. So let's take some of this, and we are going to trade places. We're going to layer this on there. With our pork chops laying flat in the bowl, we are going to layer some of this right on top. About a spoonful for each one. Maybe a little more on that big one. Okay, then what we're going to do is set this aside because this one's done. It's ready to sit and marinate until we're ready to cook them. We'll cover it with plastic, set it aside, probably pop it back in the fridge because it's going to be just a little bit before we get to it. Then we're going to spice up what's left of our chutney marinade and put it on the rest of the pork chops. Okay, now we're going to spice up the marinade that's going to go on the rest of the pork chops. Before that though, I think I'm gonna take just a little bit out in case I need some to dress it with once we cook those things and plate them up for everybody. Make sure you get a little bit of everything. That's perfect. Pop that in the fridge. Okay, to spice up these pork chops, we have red jalapenos. Just like before, we want to make sure to take everything out of the center. We're going to take the seeds and all this little white stuff. That's where all the heat's held. We just want the flavor. We don't want these to be killer hot, just tasty hot. Probably for the amount of pork chops we have, this one big pepper is going to be just about right. We're going to chop this up. And if you're not sure if one pepper is going to be enough, let's give it a taste. These are pretty mild, so I'm going to go ahead and add a second one to this mix because I know these guys and myself are going to love it being a little more spicy. Again, we'll take all that stuff out of the middle. Chop this one up too. Add this one in. And we'll give this a stir. This looks delicious. Make sure our peppers are all spread out. We don't want to get all that pepper in just one bite because that could really ruin somebody's night. Okay, our pork chops are spread out in the bowl just like the other ones were. And what we're going to do is spread these on here. Try and get a spoonful for kind of each one. That looks just about right. And it also leaves us just a little bit left of the spicy version to put on the side also. So we're going to put these in the fridge along with the other ones, and we're going to move on to our macaroni and cheese and our cornbread. Now we're on to our macaroni and cheese. We have our water boiling. It's got olive oil, garlic, and some of those homegrown onions in them. And then once it starts boiling, we're going to drop our pasta in, but first we're going to start on our breadcrumb topping. We have half a stick of butter melted in a saucepan. We're going to add a cup of breadcrumbs and about a quarter cup of Romano cheese. I'm going to mix that up real well. It's going to add a little depth to the breadcrumbs that go on top of the macaroni and cheese. Once we get that incorporated, we're just going to turn the heat off and let it sit to the side. Kind of looks like when you make a graham cracker crumb topping, what it looks like when you start to get it all together, then it's just perfect. Give you a little look-see. See that? It's just starting to melt everything. It's going to be delicious on top. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to melt another stick of butter. This is for our cheese sauce. Again, sorry, this is not a non-fat meal. This is comfort food this time. So we're going to get that one stick of butter melted. To that we're going to add 3 cups of milk. Again, whole milk. Then we're going to add 3 different kinds of cheese. We're going to use a mascarpone cheese. We're also going to do a cheddar cheese, an extra sharp cheddar, and some Romano cheese for that too. So it's all going to come together and taste really good. So once we get this melted, we'll start adding everything in. Okay, the butter's all melted. We're going to pour the milk in. We need about 3 cups. This is about 4 cups, so we're going to leave a cup of milk in here. Just get going. Stir it right in. We did turn down the heat just a little bit. I don't want the milk to scorch. Once we get this all warmed up, then we'll start adding everything else in. That's just about right. Okay. Once our milk and butter are nice and warm, pretty close to really hot, we're going to start adding in the flour, because this will thicken everything up and help it hold together when we put it onto our pasta. So put a little bit in there. Whisk it up. We don't want to have lumps. We definitely want it to be nice and creamy and just like yummy cheese sauce when we're all done. Okay, once we have that flour in, turn the heat back down just a little bit again. We're going to stir it up really well. And it also sounds like our water for our pasta is just about ready. Perfect timing. Okay, our water is boiling. Our flour and our butter and our milk are all incorporated really well. So what we're going to do is put our pasta in our water and then finish with our cheese sauce. We're going to use this pasta. It's got a crazy little name. All you want to do is make sure you have a pasta that has some kind of little ridges or some kind of little twists and turns that are going to hold the cheese sauce in it when you make it. So we're going to put this whole thing in. We want to give it a little stir just to make sure it doesn't stick together. And this pasta cooks for 13 to 15 minutes before we take it out. We want it to be just al dente because it's gonna keep cooking once we put that nice hot cheese sauce on it. Our pasta looks great. It's cooking away, it's boiling. Our sauce is ready to go to the next step. Let's start by adding some of this cheddar cheese and Romano cheese in. We're gonna do a little bit at a time so we can incorporate it all. We want it to melt nice and evenly. After one more handful, what we're going to do is put our mascarpone cheese in too. Okay, at this point, we're going to switch over from our whisk because it's too thick and go back to our spatula. Going to keep mixing all this cheese in. Still got quite a lot to go. It's melting very nicely. Make sure we get all that cheese in there. Okay, let's give our pasta a stir also. It's looking great. Our cheese is cooked, our pasta is cooked. We're going to blend them all together in a big bowl. Before we put them in the bowl, we're going to bake them in. That's so we make sure that we get the cheese all over every little piece of pasta. So here we go. Probably pour about half of it in. Then we'll mix it and come back and add some more. We want to make sure that when we stir this up, we get every single piece covered. Looks like we got a little bit of cheese on each piece, so we're going to add some more cheese in now and stir it again. If you have cheese left over, that's okay too. Just put it in the fridge and use it for something else. Okay, we're going to put just a touch more in. That should be good. Then we're going to transfer it over to a new baking dish I have. It's called Heartstone. Blogged about it a couple days ago. It is a natural stone made in the USA and it looks fabulous. I cannot wait to use it. You don't have to spray it, but I did spray it a little bit because I want that extra garlic flavor in there because I used my little spritzer with the garlic oil in it. So we're going to get this into that new thing we have. And then we're going to pop it into the oven. Perfect. We're going to add the breadcrumbs and a little bit of bacon and then pop that thing in the oven. Okay, we are going to add some of the breadcrumbs we made earlier. Just pour that on there. Okay, spread it out. Then the last touch, some bacon. Just a little bit around the top. Cooked this earlier so that it was all nice and crumbled. Now we've got our oven set at 425. We just want it in long enough to brown everything on top and kind of make it all come together. Everything's already cooked, remember, so we just need it in there for maybe 10 minutes. So we're going to pop it in the oven, and in about 10 minutes it'll be ready to go. All right, now on to our cornbread. On our list is the cornbread. Here we go. I've got a cup of sugar, the baking soda and the salt already in here. I have 2 sticks of melted butter that we're going to add into this. We're going to mix that all really well. Kind of looks like a paste almost. Okay, once it's all mixed up really good, we're going to add our 3 room temperature eggs. And then mix those in real good. This part is easier than it sounds. Everything we have in this bowl right now is very slippery and doesn't want to mix together, but it's going. There we go. All right, now we're going to add a 1.25 cups of buttermilk. That's what makes this buttermilk cornbread. Okay. There we go. Pour that in. Mix that all together. Now to this mix, we're going to add 1.5 cups of flour and 1.5 cups of cornmeal. We're going to do that a little bit at a time. We'll start out with 1 cup of flour. We'll just kind of fold it in together. Don't worry about lumps. Cornbread always has lumps in the batter. It's starting to look like really creamy, almost lemony. It's not, but it sure looks that way. Now we're going to make a basic cornbread today. You could add all kinds of things into your cornbread. You could add extra sweetness with some honey. You could add some extra savoriness with some bacon and some cheese, or maybe some chives. That makes it really good too. This recipe is not really sweet, even though it does have sugar in it. So anything you want to add to this is going to make it just even that much better. Okay, the 1 cup of flour is pretty well blended, so we're going to start by adding some cornmeal in. The cornmeal is a bit coarse. If it seems too coarse to you when you buy it, you can always run it through your food processor to lighten it up a little bit. It's just kind of what your preference is. This mixes in a little bit easier, kind of like making grits if you've ever had those. Okay, that's all the cornmeal that goes in. I'm going to add the rest of the flour. Once we get this stirred in into the right consistency, we're going to use the foil cups this time. We're going to put those on a cookie sheet and drop them in the oven. Now we're gonna fill our muffin tins. Probably only want to go about halfway on these. They're an accent to dinner, not part of the main course. Okay, all of our cups are filled. We'll do this a couple times so we get all that batter done. We're gonna pop these in an oven at 375 and just watch them until they're golden brown. Now with everything else ready, we're gonna get the pork chops out of the refrigerator and put them into our black skillets. Okay, these look delicious. Those are our spicy ones. These are our not spicy ones. We're gonna get the pans nice and hot so that they get a good sear on each side. We don't wanna overcook these. I know it's pork, but you still don't wanna overcook it. If you overcook anything, any kind of meat, it gets tough and it's not really good. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these out of here just like they are. We wanna put the big fat ones in first. We're going to put the side that was marinating down, and we're going to put some of this on top. We're going to put the big ones down first. Then when we're ready to flip those, we'll add the little ones in. Turn the heat down to about medium-high. One thing we want to make sure we do is we don't move them around. You want to leave them and let them have a nice little crispy kind of a searing going on underneath them. Because if you leave it like that, when you flip them over, it's going to hold the juices better, and it's going to be much more tender, much more tasty, and much better when you sit down to dinner. They probably need about 2 more minutes on this side. Then we're going to flip them over and add those smaller ones in, because those are only going to take less than half the time to cook. These smell so delicious, and they're just about ready to get turned. So let's take a look. Oh, look at that. Let me hold this up for you. It's exactly what you want to see on this side before you turn it over. That is perfect. Little ones are right along with it. So this is great. Spicy ones are right there too. Okay, these little ones are ready to come off. These are the not spicy ones. And these are the spicy ones. We're going to get some of this chutney out of there and then let the big ones keep cooking. The family should be here in about 20 minutes, so we're almost ready for dinner. Our corn muffins are about to come out, so everything's coming together. I'm going to get the table set, and we're going to have a wonderful family dinner. I hear everybody pulling up in the driveway. We've got our table set, and we're ready to go. So let's go meet them at the door and bring them in for this fabulous dinner.
I got the spicy one. But it's not over spicy.
No.
I love it.
She's a real good cook, Jen.
So today we have for our family dinner a spicy pork chop and a not spicy pork chop, so everybody can have what they want. We've got some baked macaroni and cheese.
How's yours, Irene?
We've got some cornbread. We made a salad, and you guys don't forget we've got dessert. We've got a pecan pie and a banana cream pie.
Save room.
Save room for dessert, definitely.
Oh, no problem.
I don't know if I
Thank
can
you guys for hanging with Wow Mom Cooking today. We're gonna enjoy our meal. I'm gonna make myself a plate, and we'll see you next time.
Salud!
You can come to me anytime.
Salud!